submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. I call this story
Are You Afraid of the Dark Season 2 review. This season's got pretty much the same cast as the last one, so I'm not gonna do another cast ranking. It's the same as last time. That little prissy kid, Eugene or Francis, whatever his name was, he's gone, but otherwise the cast is the same. It's down to 6 people. I got these episodes coming in a list, but I don't think it's the order that they aired, or maybe it's just not the order they were supposed to air in. Because when I get into Season 3, which I've just started watching, there's some little continuity errors, weird things, where the characters say, you know, this person was supposed to show up today, but we're going to have to wait for them until next week when they showed up the episode before. I'll explain it later, but anyways, that doesn't matter. What I'm basically trying to say is I'm going to go through each of these episodes. 13 episodes in this season. Give out a couple awards, give you my thoughts and everything, and that'll do it. So the first episode is Tale of the Final Wish. This one is very easy to remember because it's got this great special guest appearance by Bobcat Goldthwait, and he's pretty funny in it. I mean, he just does his shtick, and he got his paycheck doing his goofy character and whatever. But this episode is pretty interesting. It's about a girl who doesn't want to grow up. She wants to stay a kid, and all her friends are moving on from their childish ways. They're probably supposed to be about 13 or so, and they want to, get laid, do drugs, things like that. But she still likes being a kid. She wears frumpy little outfits, and she loves fairy tales. And that's what this whole episode's about. She encounters the Sandman, who's played by Bobcat Goldthwait. The girl, she was a little annoying, but I think she was supposed to be, and I think she was a pretty solid actress overall. Her boyfriend, her brother, actually, is really good at being this obnoxious jerk who's always fucking with her, trying to scare her. There's this, hot guy in the episode that all the girls are swooning over, and he happens to like the main character, you know, the kind of younger girl, and he was actually one of the least annoying hot guys I've ever seen in a show, if that makes sense. He was actually didn't seem like a total douchebag. Overall, it's a very memorable episode. It's really good. Basically, she just wishes that everyone would leave her alone, so she wakes up in the land of Nod, where the Sandman resides, and she gets to hang out with him forever, with all of her friends and family passed out in the sleep. This episode brings up the one trope that I found this season. There was a lot more tropes last season, which do continue into this one. You know, remember, like how I was saying, every episode someone calls out that, you know, you're not scaring me, I'm not scared, I know it's you, whoever, and, people are always being asked if they're chicken, and all those little tropes I pointed out last time. Well, the one new trope I found for this season was the bad guy tells the character something that he doesn't like, and then at the end of the episode, he is defeated by whatever that thing is. Like in this episode, she tries to touch the Sandman's hourglass, and he's like, oh no, don't touch that. And then at the end of the episode, she breaks it, and then somehow that, reverses the curse or whatever, and that's in a ton of episodes in this season. So I gave this episode a 4 out of 5 magic bags of sugar. I think that was what the rating system was, I forgot. Episode 2 is Tale of Locker 22. The main character in this is a French girl, and she's pretty hot, but she's really dull, and not a very good actress. She delivers the lines really flatly. It's basically about a girl. She's new in school. She keeps on getting sent back into the 70s, where this event happened where a girl died, became a ghost or whatever. It was a pretty cool story. It had the time travel element, which isn't used in a ton of Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes. I mean, there's a lot of episodes where there's ghosts who are from the past, but it's not often that the character actually travels back in time. And her love interest was this really cool black guy. He was good in it, but overall, this episode was a little dull. Pretty memorable. I remember it really well from my childhood. I gave it a 3. Third episode, Tale of the Hatching. This one is about 2 kids, a nerdy older brother and a rebellious younger sister. They get sent away to this boarding school where the teachers are adverse to loud noises. They make the kids eat this stuff called sponge. If you remember the episode, it's this weird creamy kind of stuff. Kind of looks like frosting mixed with oatmeal. And they eat it, and I guess at night this sponge makes them kind of turn into zombies who feed salt to a bunch of eggs that are hidden underneath the school. It doesn't make sense if I try to explain it to you, but yeah, you've probably seen it before. This episode, the younger sister was pretty funny as this sort of, I just think it's always funny to see some tiny little girl try to act tough and cool, and she did a funny job at that. The villains were kind of weak. It was the principal and his, probably the assistant principal or something. They weren't that scary or intimidating, but, so I was leaning more towards giving this episode a 2, but I'm going to go with a 3 because the episode ends with the characters blowing up a dinosaur with a guitar solo out of a cassette deck. Number 4, Tale of the Frozen Ghost. This is a very memorable episode. It's a special Nickelodeon crossover with Melissa Joan Hart from Clarissa Explains It All. The kid in this, okay, this episode's about a really sissy little boy, a rich kid, who has a sort of tough inner city babysitter played by Clarissa. And he gets sent off to stay with his 2 eccentric old aunts in the country. And so she's always giving him a hard time. She's his babysitter. It's so weird that you would send a kid with his babysitter off to be babysat by his eccentric aunts. It's very strange, but anyways, she's always giving him shit, saying, you know, you're a bitch, you're a pussy, you're afraid of mud. At one point, she picks up a bunch of mud and just smashes it all over his clothes, and it bums him out because he likes being really clean. And this kid is fantastic. I'm not sure if he's an amazing actor or if this is just him, but he does such a good job at playing this frail, weak, just a timid little boy. He does a great job, and it really makes you feel for him. Even though he's really annoying and kind of pathetic, you still feel sorry for him because he's just so sad. But this episode's about a little boy who long ago got trapped in the woods after he was chased by some robbers, and he got scared and he lost his jacket, and then he died. So throughout the episode, the ghost keeps on telling the little boy that he's cold. They find his jacket, and that's how the episode ends. So overall, it was a good episode. The eccentric aunties, they were very good in it. They were pretty funny. They kept on having jokes about how they couldn't hear, and a bunch of old people jokes that were fun. Reminded me of the Golden Girls. So I'm giving this episode a 4. Very memorable episode. Next we got Tale of the 13th Floor. I did not remember much of this episode, and it wasn't very good. It's basically about this girl and her brother. She's adopted, which they just blatantly point out over and over again in the episode. A toy store opens on the top building of their apartment complex, which is very odd. The 2 kids get invited to go up there and play with the toys. Turns out that the toy store is actually just a ruse for these aliens to come pick up the girl, who turns out to be an alien herself that they left there, hence the adoption. Overall, this episode wasn't great. The lead girl was okay. Everyone else, all the other actors in the episode kind of sucked. And the ending, I wasn't too excited about it. In the end, it just turns out, yes, she is an alien and her brother gets all scared. So, not a memorable episode. I gave it a 2. One of the weaker ones of this season. Okay, now we got Tale of the Midnight Madness, all-time classic, very memorable episode. Do you remember this episode as the one where Nosferatu comes out of the movie screen to attack the patrons of the movie theater? This one I really like. It's a really fun time. It's about kids working at a old rundown movie theater, which is just seems like it'd be so much fun to work at an old kind of small movie theater with just a small little group of co-workers, and I don't know, something really romantic about that to me. I always like movies that are kind of about movie theaters, like Last Action Hero. I know a lot of people hate that movie, but I loved it as a kid and I still like it. You know, a lot of it takes place in movie theaters. The main girl, she's so beautiful. Dr. Fink's in this episode, who's one of Frank's characters. He only shows up in Frank's stories, I'm pretty sure. This one had great acting. The lead actor, he was really good. I thought he had great chemistry with the girl. There's this really sleazy owner of the movie theater who's got like a receding hairline, and he's fat, typical kind of stereotypical sleazebag car salesman guy, and he keeps on screwing with Dr. Fink. This episode's great, and the makeup on Nosferatu when he comes out of the screen is just fantastic. Some of the best makeup I've ever seen on this show. He really looks great. So this is a classic episode. I got to give this one a 5. Perfect score. But not really a perfect score because I give a lot of episodes 5s and then I have to rank them. Basically when I say 5, it means one that I would love to watch again. Number 7, we got Tale of the Dream Machine. This is another classic. This is one I always went back to as a kid, one I always thought about a lot. It's about this guy and his friend. They're in a creative writing class, and they have to write a story, and one of the kids has just moved into a new house. They're walking up, I think they're walking up to the attic or something, but his friend breaks through the stairs, and they find this secret room with this old typewriter, and then they find out that this old author used to live in the house, and he used to type on this typewriter in this secret room, and for some reason the main character, who likes to write himself, is really excited about this typewriter. He says, you know, it's a classic. They don't make them like this anymore. So he types up a story on it, and what happens is his stories, when he writes them on the typewriter, whoever they're about, basically if they're asleep, I guess, they have a dream about the story, and then if the story's read aloud, it actually happens for real, and that person disappears and kind of exists in the story. It's one of the most original concepts I think the show has had, and it's really great. I really enjoy it. Basically, what happens at the end is he wrote a story about his best friend getting buried in a graveyard, and he turns it into his teacher, and his teacher is reading it aloud. So the, his friend disappears and is in the graveyard being chased by a madman, and he has to find his teacher and get her to stop reading it. But the way the episode ends, I thought it was really clever because it wasn't one of those things where, like I was saying before, one of the big tropes of the show is that something bad will happen in an episode. You know, the villain will reveal his weakness to the hero, and then they'll exploit that at the end of the episode. This one had a much more clever ending. He just writes on the typewriter, you know what, the typewriter stopped being magic and everything written on it never came true. And then he reads it aloud and that's it. And I thought that was really clever, the way the episode ended. And then his friend came back and everything was over with. The woman who played his teacher is hilarious. It's so offensive, but basically she's just a big fat lady who loves to eat. So like at one point she's just like reading one of the kids' stories and mindlessly grabbing for her giant plate of donuts, and then she rumples up her hand like a claw in the crumbs, and she looks at it all disgusted, and she's all pissed off, so she walks to the school cafeteria to get more free food. And at another point she's stuffing her fat face full of donuts while she's riding on a bike, which I think is hilarious because, you know, there's this old stereotypical joke that a fat person, which I don't mean to make fun of fat people because I'm not in the best shape, and I would love to be fucking fat if I could, but I'm just too vain to indulge that much. But anyways, you know the old joke that some big fat guy will go through the drive-thru McDonald's and buy a supersized meal but get a Diet Coke. But basically it's the same joke, you know, she's riding on a bike but she's eating donuts at the same time. Anyways, this is a classic episode, one that always stuck out in my mind. Probably because the main character is Asian, but on reflection it is a really good story. Very well done episode. I gave that one a 5 also. Next up, we got Tale of the Magician's Assistant. This one was not very memorable. I did not remember it, I don't think at all, from my childhood. Maybe I saw it once or twice, but see, most of the episodes I remember really well. I'm sure I've seen them like 10 times on TV or something, you know, but this one I did not remember. The lead character kind of sucked. It's basically about this kid who gets a summer job as a magician's assistant, which is a really cool concept because that sounds awesome. That would have been an awesome summer job. That would have been way more fun than folding boxes at Pizza Factory. But the magician was a good actor, but I just did not like the lead kid in it. And the ending, it has that same trope, you know, he defeats the villain with the villain's weakness. And I just really wasn't feeling this episode. I gotta give it 2. Next up, we got The Tale of Old Man Corcoran. Another kind of a dud, you know. It has kind of an interesting concept, a pretty racy concept for Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's about 2 inner city black kids who move to the suburbs. And they're getting teased and trying to make friends with the suburban white kids, which is pretty odd story for Are You Afraid of the Dark? But basically it's about them playing hide and seek in a cemetery with these kids who turn out to be ghosts. And it was mostly bad actors, especially there's this young girl trying to play the tough girl role. She's not nearly as interesting and talented as the girl from the Tale of the Hatching. She's really bad, one of the worst actors of this season. This episode just didn't have very many memorable, scary moments, and all the acting was kind of a dud. The story was pretty predictable and boring, even for, you know, Are You Afraid of the Dark? I'm not watching Are You Afraid of the Dark for the awesome twists and turns, more just for the execution and the campy fun of it. But even for Are You Afraid of the Dark's standards, this was pretty dull, so I'm going to give this one a 2. Except we got Tale of the Full Moon. This is a very memorable one. It's kind of a mix of, let's see, well, it's about a werewolf, but it's also kind of like Rear Window or Fright Night, basically, where the monster moves in next door to you. So, I don't know, a mix of The Howling and Fright Night, I guess, and Rear Window, sort of. It's about these kids who are pet detectives. I don't know if this happened before Ace Ventura or not, but these kids are pet detectives, and all the dogs and around the town have been disappearing. They find out it's because of this werewolf who he suspects is the man dating his mom who just moved into town, but it turns out to be his brother. And the whole episode, the kid wants a dog, so at the end, he gets a new dad because his mom's dating this guy, and he gets a new dog because the werewolf, at the end of the episode, he plays fetch with it. But the lead kid in this episode, I really didn't like. I didn't like his performance, but it was a pretty cool story. I love how he gets a new dad and a new dog who turns out to be a werewolf. That was really fun. Kind of reminded me of the ending of Shaun of the Dead. But anyways, I'll just give this a 3. Mostly because I didn't like the lead. Alright, now we got Tale of the Whispering Walls. This is a very memorable one. Probably because there's an Asian woman in it. I don't know. As a child, I didn't see many Asian people on TV, so when I saw one, it kind of stuck in my head, I think. It's basically about two kids getting babysat by this Asian woman, two Caucasian kids, and they get lost. And it's leap day on a leap year, and there's a full moon. So supposedly this has some kind of magic powers where they get lost at this haunted house where the owner of the house is trying to steal people's souls. And he holds your soul, and you only get to come out and party every leap day where there's a full moon. But this, I think, is the first haunted house episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark we've had so far. I might be wrong, though. And also, I thought the lead girl was pretty good in it. Her brother was not as good, but he was fine. It definitely has the trope in full effect in this one. The villain is afraid of breezes. Actually, he doesn't like wind, so that's what defeats him in the end. And this episode actually had my favorite joke of the season, because they're fighting, the two kids, and their babysitter tells them, "Love is greatest when few words are said," something like that. And the brother says, "What does that mean?" And then the sister says, "It means shut up." So I thought that was pretty clever for an Are You Afraid of the Dark joke, and that actually made me laugh. And they talk about Zebo in this episode. Right at the beginning of the episode, the little boy's like, "Oh, that amusement park was awesome. When Zebo popped out of the haunted house, I almost shit my pants." And so that was fun. And yeah, it's a really memorable episode. Pretty good one. The villain was kind of shitty. I didn't really like his performance. But besides that, it was a good episode. I got to give that a 4. Okay, coming down. Only 2 episodes left. Number 12, Tale of the Shiny Red Bicycle. This is a classic. This episode is... It's very romantic. I don't mean romantic in a man and woman kind of way. I mean romantic in a sort of nostalgic, sort of heartbreaking, touching. Touching is the word. It's a very touching episode, and I think those are usually the best episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark, because Are You Afraid of the Dark can't compete with, a grown-up horror movie when it comes to gore or thrills, suspense. But I think it can compete with more of a classic sort of horror movie, ones that are more touching and get you to feel for the characters. I think it can compete in that regard, especially for someone who watched it when they were growing up. The nostalgia mixed with the touching story, it can really get the waterworks flowing. Yeah, I've seen this one so many times. I really love it. It's a great story. Really amazing story structure to it. If you're studying writing, you want to be a writer, it's not the most cleverly written thing ever, but just the actual beats of the story are really well done, especially for, take into consideration the wraparound. This episode's probably about 15 minutes long, but it's got the 3 acts, great climax, denouement. It's got everything in it. Great beats to the story. The structure of it is just perfect. It's about this guy. Him and his friend a long time ago were going fishing, and his friend fell off the bridge and died. So the whole episode's him kind of mourning his friend, and his friend's ghost keeps haunting him throughout the episode, and he finds out at the end that his friend's ghost is telling him that your little brother is going to drown in the same river I drowned in, and he gives him his red bicycle to ride and go save him. It's very touching, very good episode. The older and younger brother relationship is really good. I thought they had great chemistry, which seems like the wrong word, but just they portrayed the relationship of older brother and younger brother really well. The one sore spot of the episode is the father. I thought the guy who was the father, and I know I've seen him before. He's a familiar character actor. I think I've seen him in an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark before, but he kind of sucked. Like, he's telling his son, "Your friend's dead, okay? You just need to get over it. He's dead." And he says it so unsympathetically, it's just awful. It takes you right out of the story, especially with how good the lead character is. I mean, there's lots of bad lines, and it is cheesy, but he's a really good actor. The main character who plays the guy mourning his dead friend's death. It's really touching. It's a great episode, and I got to give it 5. It's a classic. Last episode of the season, Tale of the Dark Dragon. This episode starts out, and we find out this is the season finale, and it's pretty cool because we find out it's Gary's birthday. Gary's the kind of leader, the Cyclops with the glasses, and David, the young kid who looks just like Billy Corgan, is gonna tell a story with one of Gary's characters that always show up in his stories, Sardo, the guy who owns the magic shop and sells different creepy potions and things to kids. Makes sense, because in one episode last season, they actually show you that Gary does work in a magic shop. I think his father's magic shop it is. So I just thought this was really cool that for Gary's birthday, David is going to tell a story with one of Gary's characters and one of Gary's favorite themes, magic. So I thought that was a really neat way to start out this episode and a neat way to end the season. Also, because David and Christine are going to leave after this season. They're not in any more seasons of Are You Afraid of the Dark? So it's a cool way for David to go out with one last story where he uses one of Gary's characters. It's a pretty strong episode. It's about this kid who got into a car accident, so now he has a limp. He can't compete in sports anymore, and everyone kind of feels sorry for him. He hangs out at the library of his school a lot, and the girl who goes to his school, but also, I guess, just kind of like a TA at the library, she's in love with him, but he's in love with this blonde bimbo. And it's really cold, because right at the beginning of the episode, the nerdy librarian girl, who's beautiful, by the way, much hotter than the blonde girl, she asks him to go to the dance, and he says, oh, you know, I'm not much for dancing. And then he immediately asks out the blonde girl right in front of her, asks her if she wants to go to the dance, which was cold, so cold. And this episode's very romantic. It's basically about he gets this potion from Sardo that he thinks is going to make him real cool. So he takes a drop of it and it turns him into a handsome guy with a pompadour and a leather jacket and everything. And then when he asks out the blonde girl, she says yes. But he finds out that the potion, you know, it only lasts for a short amount of time and it turns you into a demon. So a bunch of shit happens. By the end of the episode, he's a full-on monster with really cool makeup. But he takes the potion one more time just so he can go to the dance with the blonde girl. The librarian girl who had followed him to the school sees him take the potion and become all handsome and whatnot, so she decides she's going to drink the whole bottle when you're only supposed to take one drop. And then, you know, she loses her glasses and shows some cleavage, and all of a sudden she's a hottie. He decides that he wants to dance with her, but then when he finds out she took the potion, he's incredibly saddened that she's going to turn into a monster. She starts to turn into the monster. And it has a really sweet ending where he figures out that, you know, even with the glasses on, she's super fine. Okay, so now I'd like to give out a couple of awards. Best episode of the season, I gotta go with The Tale of the Shiny Red Bicycle. That was a great one. Real classic. That's probably going to be contender for best episode of the series. I'm not sure yet, though. We'll see. I'll probably do a big wrap-up episode after I've done all 5 seasons to discuss some of that shit. Best costume. Best costume of this season has to go the girl from The Tale of the Whispering Walls. She's wearing this... She basically looks like Rick Rude wearing a big, giant teal sweater. It's hilarious. She's wearing these leggings, like kind of I don't know, some tights that a wrestler would wear with this crazy splash, neon splashed paint sort of 80s, early 90s design, if you know what I'm talking about. Kind of like something Rick Rude would wear with this big giant teal sweater. It looks hilarious. Best costume of the season. Best actor. I gotta go with the kid from The Tale of the Frozen Ghost. He's such a weasel. He's such a weenie. And I'm not sure if that's really him or if he's just an incredible actor. Maybe he's pulling like some Anthony Michael Hall, and he's actually like a big bully nowadays. Who knows? But yeah, best actor of the season. Worst actor of the season, I gotta give to the lead from The Tale of the Full Moon. He's horrible. Just really bad. He kind of looks like the woman who played the commander-in-chief or whatever on Dexter. He looks like a sort of sassy Latin woman. Anyways, yeah, that's all I got. I'll have the rankings of all the episodes, number 1 to number 13, on the description. And I'll be back soon with my review of Season 3, which is shaping up to be a really good one.
I declare this meeting of the Midnight Society closed. Until next time.